What's up guys, back again with another quick video. I know it's been a couple months since I last shot my last video, but I'm back again with a quick video. Hopefully it's quick, but I'm just shooting this all in one shot, so we'll see how long it takes. But in today's video I wanted to discuss planted tanks, and not planted tanks, excuse me, but buying plants. So we know that there's tissue cultures, there's lead plants, and there's potted plants. And in today's video, I'm just going to go through all three of those and, you know, my opinions on all three of those. So before we get down to business, let's find a tank to, let's do this one. So let's go over here, and I'm just going to shoot this tank so you guys could watch while I discuss these plants. Not these plants, but plant options when buying plants. So let's go with the most common one, I think, which are the lead bunch plants. Everyone's seen those lead bunch plants, you know, inside Petco and PetSmart, and you could obviously distinguish them by the lead bunch they have. So it's usually a lot of stem plants all together. Usually there's 5 or 6 stem plants, and on the very bottom there's going to be a piece of you know, lead that binds them all together, and then the lead acts as a weight to sink to the very bottom, and then you'll see that little cool bunch of plants kind of looking nice up there. I think lead plants are great. I think they have a wide selection of options you could buy lead plants from. Obviously, sometimes you won't see like a Nubius or some of those rhizome plants in a lead bunch, but we'll get into that a little bit later. So pros of lead bunch: there's a lot of options. 2, the plants are usually stem plants, and stem plants are they grow pretty fast depending on, you know, how your setup is set up currently. Obviously with CO2 and nutrients, all plants will grow better. But you know, with lead bunch plants, I believe, you know, you have a large selection of plants. Addition to that, those plants are usually grown in an immersed setup. Immersed is when they're grown outside of the water. So then they're exposed to the air, so they could uptake CO2 more readily. And so in the perspective of, you know, someone that is growing plants for a profit or something like that, you want to, you know, for them, they want to grow plants super fast. So growing it immersed is great. In addition to that, you know, when you grow in an immersed setup, you're not going to get algae that grows on top of the water, right? Or top of the leaves. Excuse me, on top of the leaves outside of the water. Because why? Algae needs at least a very damp setup to survive, right? So that's one of the pros of buying lead bunch plants. There are also some cons as well. So let's go over some of the cons. So some of the cons for lead bunch plants are that they sometimes, if you buy a lead bunch of plants and you look at the very bottom where the roots usually are, sometimes if they've been sitting in the tank for too long and they haven't been, you know, let's say that tank doesn't have CO2 and stuff like that, or that they just got the plants in, you know, a few days ago, and they start that conversion process where the leaves will slowly start to melt away and stuff like that. It's not very a con, but if you got a plant that wasn't shipped too well, I find that the lead plants, if they do come damaged, they're pretty messed up. So again, they're live plants, so, you know, the leaf structures and stuff like that are pretty delicate, so it makes sense. I don't know if I should move this tank's just full of Java fern, but anyways, let's shoot this guy over here. Moving on to the next one, which is, let's say, bunch plants, or not bunch plants, excuse me, potted plants. So for potted plants, since this potted plants, let's move on to the next guy. This next tank, I'm kind of getting tired of that tank, so let's turn down the brightness just a tad bit so it's a little bit more doable in the eyes. I don't know if you guys remember, or if you guys are new, I run my tanks with floodlights. So the floodlights are in the back. The front is going to be a night crew light, so this tank's a little bit blown out. Let's see if I can get just a tad bit darker. Okay, awesome. I think this is the best we could do. So the next type of plants that you could buy, or style that they come in, I just said I just said bunch plants before. Now we're gonna talk about potted plants. So potted plants, I usually see, you know, a Nubius, a Crips, but you can also get some stem plants as well. But usually I see stem plants with the bunch plants. But the rhizome plants like Java fern and Anubias and Hygrophila pinnatifida, I believe, is I've seen them in potted plants. So why or why not should you get potted plants? Well, there's a few reasons why you should get potted plants. One of the reason is it's in rock wool. So I find that the longevity of the plant, let's say I go to the store and I have this tank right here, and this tank is almost filled up to the brim with plants. There's some space right there, and there's some space down here, right? I don't really have that much space to plant, but since the plant itself is in rock wool, you could just take that and just throw it inside your tank. And I've done it before, and I've had some Anubias grow out there for like 6 months because I couldn't find a nice piece of wood to glue it on. So if you don't have space, you could just drop it in the tank, and the plant itself will be fine. You don't have to worry about you don't have to worry about planting it right away like the bunch plants, because that lead is actually constricting the lower end of the stem plant. So with the potted plant, I think it's a great option. Another pro I would say for buying potted plants, and usually with stem plants too. Actually, with all the options, actually, now that I think about it, with potted plants, usually you'll get multiple plants, and in all three of these, you're never really getting just one individual plant, unless it's a really rare plant. Then maybe you'll have maybe even with pink flamingo, I see multiple plants, multiple crowns, but. If there's like a new strain of some Anubias out there, you might just get one if it's rare enough. But anyways, potted plants are great. I think that the big takeaway for me, potted plants, is you're able to move them around more easily, and you don't have to plant them right away. A lot of the times when I buy plants, I don't know where to put them, but I know that I want them. So having that flexibility of not being able to plant it, or having the option of not having to plant it right away, is a great option for hoarders like myself, where we just kind of buy plants just because we like how they look and we don't really have space for them, right? Last but not least, we do have tissue culture plants. So since we are moving to another type of plant, let's move down here. Oh man, my knees. Oh my gosh. Okay, hold on. Let me grab a seat. All right, so what do we have here? This is one of my older 40 gallons, and you can see those old scratch marks on there because I don't know how to clean my glass. So anyways, what were we talking about? So tissue culture plants, man. Okay, so tissue culture plants, this is probably the longer one maybe, because I have a lot of thoughts and questions, and maybe you guys could fill me in. But so tissue culture plants, one of the big takeaways that the selling points of tissue culture plants is obviously it's grown in an aseptic setting, so it's very sterile. They're not going to have a lot of pathogens like bacteria, algae, any pathogens that come from other diseases or fish. They don't have that in tissue culture plants, because why? They're grown in an aseptic setting where it's just the plant cells and agar and growth hormones, right, in the agar, right? So when you growing plants in this lab setting, it's only the plant cell and then the agar itself, right? So you're not going to get any cross contamination or any hitchhikers or whatnot. So it's great in that way, in that sense. But I didn't mention this before, but one of the things that I noticed when I do buy a lot of tissue culture plants as well, right? But one thing I did notice when I do buy them is they're almost hypersensitive to shift in water quality, or if you have they'll do fine in my experience, of course. In my experience, so when I plant them, they'll do fine up until I do a massive water change, right? And I don't know if you guys know, but when I do water changes on my tank, they're freaking massive. They're huge. So changing the parameters that fast and that drastic, I can see how the plant kind of fades away. So I don't know if you guys know anything about lab mice, right? Lab mice, they're like a specific strain of mice that are grown to test on, right? So they're hypersensitive to pathogens. So if you were to release one of these mice outside chances are these lab mice won't survive that long, depending on, I mean, I guess what type of mice you have, but that's beyond the scope of this video. But yeah, and I think tissue cultures are exactly the same, right? So you have a tissue culture, right, and it's not used to quote unquote the elements. So when you change these parameters, it might be too drastic for these the tissue culture plants because they've never done it before, you know. And so like I think this is my theory that once you change the water, it's just so drastic for tissue culture plants, they just die off. But the strange thing is, even with my new plants that are grown like as a bunch or in a potted setting, these plants don't die off as easily. So that's just that's just something I've noticed, that tissue culture plants die off much more easily and they're not as hardy, right? Also, this tank is kind of plain. Not much in this tank right now. This tank is still going through like a blackbeard algae breakout, so I'm constantly trying to battle that. But anyways, back to what I was talking about. So the tissue culture plants. Another con I would say is when you're growing a tissue culture plant, oftentimes the store and stuff like that will not have it in a I can't blame it on the store, but sometimes I find like when they leave the tissue cultures outside, they kind of wilt away. There's a certain way to store them, and I don't know if all pet stores have the ability to just like keep them in a fridge all the time. I believe agar is supposed to be at a certain temperature before it slowly melts, and then that's where you get that washy liquid on the bottom, and then you'll start to see wilting leaves. So basically, what I'm trying to say is, tissue culture plants, you have to buy them when they just arrive, or a couple days after, right? I see that when I go, like, and they've had the plants for a week or 2 weeks, the agar is melted, a lot of the leaves are wilted, maybe because they kept them not in a cool setting or just right underneath the light. I'm not sure why that's the case, but I don't grow agar, I don't make agar, so I don't know like how to manipulate it where it won't melt so easily. But I think that's just one thing, that one of the gripes I have with tissue cultures. The shelf life of it it seems like the shelf life of tissue cultures is just not that long. But the pros is it's not going to have any bacteria or pathogens that potentially could spread algae or any ailments to your fish, right? But with that being said, when you buy new plants and stuff like that, even lead or potted plants, you want to do your job and kind of rinse them and put them in a QT tank if you want. I don't personally, but I'll usually just wash them off with the water, and that's pretty much it. I myself am not like I don't freak out when I see algae, but if you do want like a cleaner setup and start off with no algae at all, you could definitely give the tissue culture plants a try, and I think they're a great option. I think all three of them are a great option, but definitely if you want to start your tank with no algae and stuff like that, and start off on the right foot, I would definitely try and look into tissue cultures. Just be mindful of the parameters, the shift in parameters. Like if you change the parameters too quickly, in my experience, that I've seen those plants melt and completely die. They don't just melt like crypts. They melt all the way. They just die straight up all the way to the root structure. But again, maybe it's because I'm changing the parameters too fast, so it's my fault. But before we close out this video, I want to shift this one last time. Ooh, this tank is a little bit dark, so let's see if I can bring up the brightness a little. And let's see. Can you guys see that all right? Probably not, right? All right, I just made it a little bit brighter. All right, I don't know if that's bright enough, but all right, anyways, guys. So this is my bottom left tank. This is just like a kind of catch-all tank, but without getting into it too much, this is just a tank full of Anubias that I plan to sell at the Coast Fish Club. I had 2 logs. I just filled to the brim with Anubias, and that's actually what you see right now. All of that is just Anubias everywhere. I do have some Java ferns and some, you know, other random plants in there. But anyways, just to close off this video, like I said, we were talking about different varieties of plants that you could buy. I like personally, I like all of them. You know, if they have that plant, they have that plant. I'm usually gonna buy it, right? I'm not too nervous about, you know, algae and stuff like that. Algae is a naturally occurring thing in tanks, so you know, the thing is just to maintain it and keep it under control, right? And so with that being said, I don't really have a favorite. I think all three options will have its pros and cons. Like for example, pros for potted plants. You know, you could place them anywhere you want. You don't have to plant them right away. Pros for, you know, lead bunch plants. You know, they're grown immersed, right? So usually there's not going to be any algae. But however, they're usually stem plants, so you know, stem plants are usually a lot easier to grow in my experience. Obviously, all this is opinionated, right? So some people could have like bad luck with plants, and you know that's unfortunate. But in my experience, I have a lot of I have a good experience with stem plants, just because they grow so easily. And then last but not least, we have the tissue culture plants, right? Tissue culture is great. All three of them are great, but tissue culture is probably, obviously, the only one that could give you an aseptic setting where there's not going to be any algae or pathogens and hitchhikers from other tanks, right? Because it's grown in a sterile environment. So, yeah, with that being said, those are the three options, or the three options where you can buy plants. They're going to come in lead, they're going to come in a pot, or they're going to come in a tissue culture. All three are great. Like I said, if you guys want a plant, just buy it and then, you know, try it out, see if it works. If it works, cool. Then, you know, as long as you can grow some plants, you guys got that green thumb, and hopefully you guys can enjoy some plant keeping. Sorry for the absence. I don't know if I'm going to record another one soon, but I just had some time, so I wanted to stop by and shoot a quick video, and hopefully you guys liked what I talked about, and I will probably see you guys next time. So, real quick, this is my setup. It's been a while. Miss you guys, and hopefully see you guys next time. Later. Bye.